When she says, "You're too nice," most men hear one thing: being a good man is unattractive. And that misunderstanding alone destroys more men than rejection ever will. Because the truth is, when a woman tells you you're too nice, she usually isn't criticizing your kindness. She's criticizing your lack of backbone. She's not saying you care too much. She's saying you bend too easily. You agree too fast. You tolerate too much. You avoid tension. You fear disappointing her more than you value respecting yourself. And that changes everything. Because being kind is not weakness, but kindness without strength, that often feels like weakness. And attraction rarely survives where respect begins to disappear. This is where so many men get lost. They hear "too nice" and assume they need to become colder, more toxic, more careless, more selfish. So they start pretending to be someone they're not. They pull away artificially, act emotionally unavailable, force dominance, play games. But that's not confidence. That's confusion. Because the real issue was never kindness. It was fragility. Let's break this down. There's a major difference between a genuinely good man and a man who is nice because he fears conflict. A good man is kind because he chooses to be. A too nice man is often kind because he's afraid not to be. Afraid she'll leave. Afraid she'll get upset. Afraid disagreement will cost him connection. Afraid saying no will ruin his chances. So instead of being authentic, he becomes adaptive. He shapes himself around her preferences. He filters his opinions. He suppresses boundaries. He overgives. He over-accommodates. He over-explains. And little by little, he stops being respected. Not because he's bad, but because he becomes too predictable, too safe, too willing to sacrifice himself for approval. And approval seeking has a way of killing attraction. Because attraction is not built on desperation. It's built on emotional stability, self-respect, standards, certainty. Think about it. If you constantly avoid saying what you really think, if you never challenge anything, if you always prioritize keeping her happy over being honest, what message does that send? Usually this: my priority is not truth. My priority is keeping you. And the moment someone feels that, power shifts. Because now, your behavior feels less like strength and more like dependency. This is why many women say they want a nice guy, but lose attraction when nice becomes spineless. Because kindness is attractive, but weakness disguised as kindness often isn't. And this is important. Having backbone does not mean being rude. It doesn't mean becoming aggressive. It doesn't mean disrespect. It doesn't mean domination. It means stability. It means you can be warm without being controlled. You can care without abandoning yourself. You can love without losing your standards. For example, she tests your boundaries. Do you instantly fold? She disagrees. Do you panic? She gets upset. Do you immediately apologize, even when you did nothing wrong? She pulls away. Do you chase? Or do you stay grounded? Because these moments often reveal more than words. This is where the backbone test happens. Not when things are easy, when tension appears. Because anyone can seem confident when everything is going well. But real strength shows when maintaining self-respect risks disapproval. That's where most men fail. They associate peace with always keeping her comfortable. So they become overly agreeable. They think, if I just keep being understanding, available, supportive, she'll value me. But support without strength can quickly become invisible. And invisible men often become taken for granted. Listen carefully. Being too nice often means you are negotiating away parts of yourself for acceptance. You stop saying, "I don't like that," That doesn't work for me. No, I disagree. And once that happens, you are no longer building connection. You are performing. And performance is exhausting. Because eventually, people can feel when your kindness is coming from fear instead of confidence. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of loss. And fear changes energy. You become reactive instead of rooted, careful instead of clear, pleasant instead of powerful. And while that may temporarily keep peace, it often quietly destroys polarity. Because real connection requires two whole people, not one person slowly shrinking to avoid friction. Now, let's be fair. Not every woman means the same thing when she says, "too nice." Some use it carelessly. Some are emotionally immature. Some confuse chaos with chemistry. But in many cases, the deeper message is this: I don't feel your edge. Your edge is not cruelty. Your edge is your standards, your self-respect, your willingness to stand firm, your ability to say, "I care about you, but I will not abandon myself to keep you." That energy matters, because people often trust strength more than submission. Why? Because strength feels secure. A man with backbone does not need to control. He does not need to beg. He does not need to manipulate. He simply stands. And standing is powerful. This is why too nice men often get trapped in resentment. They give endlessly, hoping effort will create value. Then when it doesn't, they feel betrayed. I did everything right. I was always there. I treated her well. But here's the painful truth. If your kindness was rooted in earning love rather than expressing character, then it was never fully selfless. It was strategy. And covert contracts often lead to disappointment. True strength says, "I will treat you well because that's who I am, but I do not expect my kindness alone to replace confidence, standards, or self-respect." That mindset changes everything, because now you are no longer giving to secure validation. You are giving from abundance, and abundance feels different. It feels calm. It feels grounded. It feels powerful. So what should a man actually do when he hears, "You're too nice"? First, don't panic. Second, don't become bitter. Third, ask yourself honestly, am I kind or am I afraid? Do I avoid conflict because I'm emotionally disciplined or because I fear losing approval? Do I give because I choose to or because I hope it makes me enough? Those questions matter because often the issue is not your heart, it's your hesitation. And hesitation creates weakness where certainty could create respect. Start building traits that strengthen kindness, boundaries, honesty, standards, self-control, purpose. Learn to disappoint people when necessary. Learn to say no without guilt. Learn to disagree without fear. Learn that tension does not automatically mean loss. Because once you stop fearing disapproval, your entire presence changes. Now your kindness feels intentional, not desperate. Now your generosity feels strong, not transactional. Now your love feels grounded, not needy. And that is when people begin to experience you differently. Because the strongest men are not the coldest, they are often the kindest. But their kindness is backed by structure, by principles, by backbone. So no, she probably wasn't telling you to become worse. She may have been telling you, whether intentionally or not, that your kindness lacked strength, that you were too willing to bend, too eager to please, too afraid to stand. And once you understand that, you stop asking, "Should I be less nice?" and start asking, "How do I become kind without becoming weak?" Because that is the real shift. Not from kindness to cruelty, but from fragility to strength, from approval-seeking to self-respect, from fear to backbone. And when kindness finally stands beside strength, you stop being too nice. You become respected, trusted, desired. Because a man who can care deeply while standing firmly becomes very difficult to replace. Not because he is louder, not because he is harsher, but because his presence says one thing clearly: I can love without losing myself. And that kind of man rarely gets called weak. He gets remembered.